pronunciation is a key to language learning. But I think it's one of the trickier parts of language learning just because it's the most physical element. Grammar and vocab are really theoretical things. You can read an explanation and understand how to use something. After learning so many languages, there's not a lot of grammar points that surprise me anymore. I can read something about how the recipient giving the action to another person after the fact of the time period. I can understand that reading it, but you can't really understand pronunciation by reading about it. It's not theoretical at all. I feel like pronunciation's a lot like dancing. We can see when someone's good at dancing and we can know when they're not good at dancing, but it's difficult to take their body and move it into the correct position in order to dance correctly. I can't really reach into your tongue and put the tongue at the top of your mouth and put your teeth forward. I can't really do that. Like theoretically I could do that, but that still doesn't help a lot of learners because they need to intuitively understand what's going on when they hear someone pronounce something. For me, pronunciation is something I really struggle with because it's really a matter of monkey see, monkey do. I love reading about theory, but that's never going to help you with pronunciation. Unless you actually practice it and listen and observe, you're never going to learn pronunciation. I mean, you could read as much as you want about voiced dental alveolars or voiceless anal fricatives or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, you need to copy someone. And there are a lot of unhelpful strategies out there to improve your pronunciation. So here are some things I like to tell myself in order to improve my pronunciation. These are going to be some pretty general rules about all languages, so it probably is going to apply to the one you're learning, but I'm not going to teach you how to do this sound or the other sound. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to get some pointers about how to improve your pronunciation in general. The first tip I have is to remember to take nothing for granted. In languages that use the same writing system as your own, you might be tempted to use the same sounds as your own language, but this is wrong. Of course, there's the accent marks that are clearly another sound, but I mean the letters that are exactly the same might not be the exact same. S in English may not be the same S in your target language. The letter T in English is really specific and doesn't work for a lot of other European languages that use the same alphabet. I remember when I was an early learner of Turkish a few years ago, I was listening to the song Naber by Hande Yener. It's a Turkish song, and at the end of the song you hear the most clear pronunciation of this word. Turkish uses the same alphabet as English, but you'll notice the R is completely different in the song. When she pronounces the R at the end of the word, there's some kind of wispiness, some kind of sh at the end, but her tongue is still in the position of R. This song kind of showed me that the Turkish R and the English R are definitely not the same. You know, the English R is usually pretty different from a bunch of different languages, but I should say maybe the general European R is very different from the Turkish R. There's some kind of breathiness, some kind of wispiness in the Turkish R that I heard when somebody actually said it.
Kaba, kibar, bar.
So this is the perfect example of something you should not take for granted. I saw letter R and I thought my tongue should do a certain thing. Turns out no, it was a little bit different. Something that can help you do this is to think about a foreigner speaking English. There are some pretty universal characteristics about people who learn English that come from the same native language. They make similar mistakes. If a German speaker speaks English, their final consonants will be very hard. Their middle R's will not be very well pronounced. Think of the most stereotypical accent of a native speaker of your target language speaking English, and those characteristics are actually what you should be incorporating into the pronunciation of your target language. It's not to make fun of anyone, it's not to say anybody's bad at pronunciation. These are just some audio cues you can use to let you know what's a really important sound in that language that is completely different from your native language. Here we're talking about English. You want to know those sounds that are completely different from those English versions, which are causing non-native speakers to make a little pronunciation error. If you like this video already, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more. My second tip is to be very wary of those languages that claim they are not tonal. Tonal versus non-tonal languages is a topic for another day, but as it relates to pronunciation, those non-tonal languages still have a lot of information that's conveyed through tones or inflection or stress or something like that. They just don't use the word tone. In some ways, there might be a bigger problem because it's not as formalized as languages that have tonal systems, like Chinese or Vietnamese. So everybody accepts that this is the correct pronunciation, but the dictionary might not always include it. In English, for example, stress is a very important part of pronunciation, and you're going to say the wrong word if you don't use the correct stress. We buy produce at the store, but we produce things to sell. Produce and produce have completely different meanings. But I mean to say those languages that aren't tonal are probably hiding something else that the writing system is not accounting for. In Japanese, you have hashi, and you also have hashi, which have totally different meanings. Japanese is not a tonal language, but it's hiding pitch accent in a lot of the pronunciations. And if you don't know those pronunciations, you will sound like a foreigner. So this is key to master the Japanese accent. Yes, people can understand you if you don't do it correctly, but in order to perfect your pronunciation and make it very easy for natives to understand you, you need to do that pitch accent. In the same way that you need to have good stress in English if you want someone to understand you. My third tip is to keep some sense of coherency with your accent. I think the best kind of language learning is the one that's listening to many different sources and many different kinds of speakers, but what happens if you do this is sometimes you get some sort of mixed accent. A lot of English learners do some combination between British and American English, which is okay theoretically, but it can make some problems when people are understanding you because there is not a consistent logic within your pronunciation. You know, with my American accent, if I were to say nor, you know I'm talking about neither nor. But if I were to use an Aussie accent, suddenly nor has a different meaning than neither nor. Neither nor is different from nor, meaning the opposite of yes. I apologize for that accent. Or nor clear the condensation. While it is okay to not use the standard accent and use some kind of regional accent, you need to consistently stay with that, or natives will be confused. If I were to combine my American nor with Australian nor, you don't know what I'm trying to say. Am I saying N-O? Am I saying N-O-R? I don't know because your accent is not consistent. How can we understand someone from the American Deep South when all of their diphthongs become monophthongs? It's such a radical change to the language, but we understand them because their accent is consistent. They will always use monophthongs in that situation. But if I were to suddenly sometimes change my diphthongs to monophthongs, it would be impossible to understand me. So just keep consistent, stick to one accent, do not mix. My fourth tip is to try to keep some coherency by thinking of a language role model for you. You can keep that coherent accent if you try to focus on speaking like one person speaks your language. You know, this could be the president or the prime minister of the country, or it could be some celebrity you like, or it can be some YouTuber you always listen to. I think it's really helpful for me when I have a certain speaker in mind when I'm learning some language. It gives my accent and pronunciation some kind of structure because I'm thinking, how does he say it? How does this person say it? I want to speak like them. And this role model doesn't have to be a famous person. In high school, I remember this Spanish exchange student, and I thought her accent in English was so interesting. You know, her final S's became like a lot. Instead of papers, she would say like papers. And she kind of became my Spanish role model because when I try to speak Spanish, I'm trying to invoke her energy when I speak Spanish. It gives my accent some kind of logic because especially with Spanish, you can really run the risk of mixing accents because there's just so many varieties of Spanish. Since I've been sticking to this one person's style of speaking who I met like 10 years ago, it really helps my Spanish consistently stay in one pronunciation. So what do you folks think? How do you improve your pronunciation? What are some things you try to remember to keep your pronunciation the best it can be? So thank you for watching all the way through for this video. Give it a like if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more. You can follow me on my social media, which is linked in the description. I also have a website at studywithalex.com where I talk about language related things just like this video today. So thank you for watching today's video. I'll see you for another video very soon, alright? Adios!